Good morning, hello, thanks for tuning in again. Red flag warning on this video and a trigger warning. I want to talk about mental health and specifically my mental health and how it's affected me and what I do to manage the condition. This video is not suitable for children, and the opinions are my opinions, not any opinions of anybody else. I only ever speak of illnesses or situations that I have or have experienced, because I'm a staunch believer, especially with mental health, that you can only really understand it if you've experienced it and gone through it, because it is an animal. It is absolutely awful. Okay, I'll try and start at the beginning. There's a good chance that I'm going to be zinging all over the place and trying to get as much information out there as quick as possible, but I'll try and slow down. I'll try and be as calm as I can. Basically, about, I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago, I was married, but the marriage was more a platonic relationship. You know, we were very good friends, and we basically stayed together, not for the sake of the children, but to keep a family unit, because the children were still young then, which was okay by me. I was fine, you know. I mean, I had a low opinion. I said, well, I have a low opinion of myself because I have all these illnesses and diseases, and, you know, I don't consider myself to be a prize catch or, you know, desirable in any way. So for me, it wasn't an issue, you know, being in a relationship where I could be around my children with somebody who I got on very well with, and we still could have a laugh and a joke and what have you. Everything was fine. But then things change, and things changed personally for myself. I found that my mind was wandering. I'm unable to work because of the illnesses that I have. So I was the primary caregiver to the kids, where my wife went to work to support us. But about this time, things were getting on top of me. We lived in a house which was far too big for us and was very expensive, and I was constantly concerned with being able to afford things, which ironically triggered a monumental blowout on getting stupid things from catalogues, things like pool tables and bars, which again is ludicrous. I don't drink. Obviously loads of clothes, loads of furniture, thousands and thousands of pounds worth, and it was a way of trying to lift my mood. You know, I had the availability, I had the credit limit to do it, and the minimum payments were still manageable, until obviously I blasted every day. There was a knock at the door from the catalogue man with loads of boxes, and, you know, the kids thought it was great, and we had big TVs for their Christmas presents, and, you know, money was no object really, but it was all a facade. It was all me trying to prove that I had worth, which obviously came crashing down, because there comes a point where you can't spend any more and you can't pay it back, which added to pressure within the relationship. We separated a few times during our marriage. I mean, we were married for at this moment, you know, I can't say, and that's terrible, but I can't think. It is only like 7 in the morning and I am tired, but married for a very long time. But I do know that we were in a relationship for about, I want to say 12 years maybe. But again, I could be wrong. I'm very tired. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rach. But yeah, we separated a couple of times, and then we decided to get back together for the unit, and then it was decided that we would separate permanently, and that for me was an additional strain which proved too much for me to take. I was upset at obviously the marriage breaking down, but due to the situation, or due to the marriage that we had, I was more concerned about losing a very dear friend rather than losing a wife. But I was more concerned about losing my kids, you know, and someone else bringing up my kids. That thought ate me up inside, and I couldn't manage it. You know, I found myself spending as much time as I could with Grace, mate, who was only a little nipper. She was 4 or 5. No, she wasn't. 6 or 7, maybe. It's early again. I'm sorry, Grace. I hope you're not watching this, Grace. But she's 14 now, so. But I found myself sleeping on her floor in her bedroom and on her bed next to her and reading her stories. I used to love reading her Winnie the Pooh stories, and I used to be able to do all the voices, and I did an amazing Tigger, if I did it say so myself, which I'm going to try and embarrass myself now. Punch, punch, Tigger. But I used to love doing all that. Unfortunately, she can't remember me doing it, but I did used to do all the voices for all of them. But yes, and I found another place to live. I mean, I had no income, I had no job because I couldn't work, but I went cap in hand to my stepfather for a loan. Basically, I told him of the situation, and he lent me just over £3,000 to put the deposit down on the flat, pay for a couple of months' rent, and tied me over with groceries until I got a job, basically, which I did quick sticks. I used to be a retail manager for Burton Menswear for 14 years, and I managed to get a job, a part-time job, little 20-hour job at Dorothy Perkins, which was the female version of Burton's, basically. So operationally, I knew all the back of house and the administration and things, and because I knew the interviewing manager very well, it was kind of a shoo-in for me that I got the job. And unfortunately, I found very early on that I wasn't coping well with the job. I couldn't grasp the halter neck tops and the different methodology and terminology. But I could do back of house. I could do all the admin and all the paperwork, and knew how to structure the warehouse side. So that was the agreement I had with the then manager, who didn't like me because I was an experienced manager and I knew more than she did, and that was like the unspoken truth of it, basically. But fortunately she left pretty soon, and the new manager was a new manager to the company. So it was agreed that I would take charge of the back of house, do all the paperwork side, not have to worry about learning the trends and the fashion for this, that and the other. I could still obviously do customer service and help as best I could, but there was no pressure on me to learn that side, which was fantastic. The downside of working in a woman's shop is when the delivery comes, being the man, they expect you to do it all. And me being me, I did. And I was humping tote boxes, huge tote boxes of stock, and you'd get like 60, 70 boxes that I've got to take up 3 flights of stairs on my own. And then you have the hanging sets of 10 garments, and you might have 50 of those, you know, and trying to walk upstairs with your arms around a bunch of them, and all the cellophane's getting under your feet, and your legs are like jelly and pouring with sweat and absolutely on your knees. And I would get home and I would just collapse on the settee. At the time, Riley, my son, was living with me, and he chose to live with me, which I thought was very sweet. And he said to me, "I'll come live with you, Dad, because I don't want you to be on your own," you know. And you know, I thought that was lovely. I mean, Riley is a cracking kid. You know, I mean, he's not a kid anymore. He's 17, but he's a strange lad. You know, he doesn't say, or at the time he didn't express his emotions at all. You know, he was one of those very shy away from emotions and wasn't that keen on getting a hug or a kiss. Different now, which is brilliant. You know, I'm a very emotional guy. You could probably tell my voice dipped when I was talking then, because looking back, you know, it was a big decision for a very young lad to make, to live with his dad and not his mum. But I would come home and make Riley's dinner, and that would be it. I would be crashed out. You know, I didn't consider myself to be a very good parent then, you know, because I literally had nothing left. I was exhausted, I was drained, and the thought of going into work the following day, just 4 hours, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I lasted about 3 months, maybe 4 months. And I just got to a point where I thought, I can't carry on. And I had all these thoughts about what am I going to do? You know, I'm worthless. I can't provide for myself or Riley. And I was having all these really dark thoughts that I couldn't control, thoughts that I didn't understand. And I basically said to Rachel that I was struggling working for Dorothy Perkins and, you know, being in the flat. And true to form, as the lovely person that she is, she says, well, come back. You know, we'll just be as before. You know, become a family unit, bring the family back together again. There were issues going on at the house, which I feel that she may have felt that she could do with some support with. The house that we were renting was massive. It was a massive old Victorian house, and the ceiling had collapsed in the lounge. When we moved in, there was a huge crack there, and we said about it, you know, said, oh, that's fine, it's been checked, it's fine. But it wasn't. It all crumbled down, and you could see all the floorboards and things like that in one of the kids' rooms upstairs. And every time I was in there, it would like come down. And there was an ongoing dispute about that. They tried to say, oh, well, you've caused that, you know. So we took them to court. So this was on the back of my mind, thinking, well, I'm leaving the flat, which is a huge burden. I'm leaving Dorothy Perkins again, which is great because I can't manage, and I'm going to end up killing myself working there. But the thought of moving back into that situation of having to deal with the court and, you know, the hostilities with the landlord wasn't appealing either. I thought I'm moving from one situation to another, but I was just desperate to get out of that place. But then one day it proved different. Riley was staying with his mum for the weekend, I believe, and I was due to move back that day. And also that day was the day I went to Dorothy Perkins to take the keys back because I was a key holder. But that day was the day I decided I was going to leave the planet. That's how I say it. I can only describe it as, on that particular day, I wasn't in control of myself at all. I didn't know who I was or what I was doing. It felt like I was like a little jelly baby inside my full body, and there's no way a jelly baby can run a full body. But the body contrived a plan that it thought would work. I'd text Rachel to say that there was an exit interview that I had to do, so it'll be a good few hours before I moved back. I think most of my stuff was still at the flat, but the idea was that I would go and get give the keys back, which was a 2-minute job, and then go to the local hardware store and get some items that would help me leave the planet. I then basically went home back to the flat and assembled what I'd bought, and I basically bought about 4 box cutters and some Stanley razor blades, and my plan was I had a 2-month supply of Zopiclone 7.5 milligrams, which was 56 tablets, and the plan was to take the 56 tablets. I'd researched about cutting myself where it would cause the most damage, and I found out that the carotid arteries on the side of the neck, if they're severed, then that's game over basically. And I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the tablets, wait for them to take their effect, because when you have a Zopiclone, when it starts to take effect, you feel a bit drunk in the respect that you stumble, and I thought, well, when that happens, that's when I'll take the box cutters and do the job. Bizarrely, and this demonstrates the state of mind, I mean, I'm a smoker, but you're not allowed to smoke in the flat. So bizarrely, I kept going outside for cigarettes, all the time planning on going inside and doing the deed, and obviously there would have been a huge mess of blood and all sorts of horrible things. But smoking inside, no, couldn't do that. It's crazy. Fortunately, I took the tablets and the effect took hold before I knew it did. And I came round, and Rachel and her friend were trying to rouse me, and I woke up, and it was as if I'd had a bottle of vodka, say. I wasn't aware of what was going on, or what. I thought I was dying, and my only thought was to tell Rachel that Oliver's birthday present is wrapped up on the side in my bedroom. Make sure he gets it. That was my main concern. I don't remember anything else, but the 2 women dragged my body out of the flat, down a passageway, and stuffed me into a Mini because they called an ambulance, but they were told there would be a 2-hour wait. So they thought, well, he can't wait, because they'd seen the tablet bottles, they'd seen all the razor blades, but obviously I hadn't done that. But the tablets were enough, and they knew that would be enough to finish me off. And apparently, again, I've got no knowledge of this, but I was in the A&E emergency room, and they couldn't wake me up. So, and the doctor couldn't find a vein. So he injected me with, I think it was adrenaline, in my femoral artery in my leg. At which point I did an Uma Thurman and didn't do a deep breath, but apparently I screamed. I sat up, screamed in pain, and then passed out again. Don't remember that at all. I woke up the next day to Grace running towards me, and there's nothing better than a little girl running towards you. She went, "Daddy, Daddy," and at that moment I thought, I've had a crisis, and I'm in hospital. They've come to see me. And Rachel was very quiet. She didn't really talk, and I was like, what's going on? She said, "You know what you've done, don't you?" And I had no idea. I had no idea what I'd done, none whatsoever. And I mean, I was very dozy, and I slept for I don't know how long, but I slept a lot. But apparently in that time I'd spoke to my mum and stepdad. I'd spoken to a psychiatrist, which I've got no memory of, and I was referred to a psychiatrist as an outpatient, and I was released from hospital a few days later, I think, and I basically went back to the house. Only went back to the flat to get a couple of things. My best mate in the world, Martin, and his brother Scott, two very good friends of mine, known them since I was 11. They came and emptied the flat for me. As a side note, in my working career, I moved 34 times all around the country, different places and flats, with the job to gain promotion and what have you. And all bar one, Martin was driven the van and done most of the heavy lifting for me. You know, he's an absolute diamond of a bloke. Love you, brother. They're the two boys I go biking with as well. Motorbikes, love them. Don't have one at the minute because I sold it to pay for some of this. But anyway, back to the story. Moved back into the main house. The kids were pleased to see me. I mean, I was in the bathroom when Rachel told Oliver that I'd been found. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. That was something else. I'll come back to that one in part 2, because this video is about 20 minutes long, so I don't know how well it'll upload or whatever, so I'll hold it there. I'll move back to the house. The flat is done with, and trying to get back to normal, whatever normal is. I'll see you in part 2.